¿Qué tal, gente? My name is Rodrigo Garcia. I am the artistic director of Teatro Visión and your co-host for tonight, or your host for tonight. Bienvenidos a la Hora del Mitote. We thank you for joining us tonight. Hora del Mitote se transmite por nuestra página de Facebook, en nuestro canal de YouTube, Instagram Live y en Channel 30 de Create TV. We invite you to participate by sending us your questions and comments. I would like to start off by acknowledging that we are guests here on the ancestral homeland of the Muwek people who continue to live and thrive in our local society today. Me gustaría comenzar reconociendo que somos huéspedes aquí, la tierra ancestral del pueblo Muwek Maolone que continúa viviendo y prosperando en nuestra comunidad local hoy. Bienvenidos. This evening, I'm so excited. We have the honor of speaking with two people that are very special, and you know, I'm already nervous of speaking with them, and I will not take too long. And I was telling them before we started that there are so many things that I wanted to ask them in so little time that we have. That I hope I do justice to the work that they've done and to the time that we're going to be together tonight. And we invite you all to participate by sending us your questions and comments here on the chat. So without further ado, let me introduce to you one of our guests tonight, who is a renowned and award-winning author. El Dr. Francisco Jiménez. Dr. Francisco Jiménez was born in Tlaquepaque, Mexico, and immigrated with his family to the U.S. at the age of 4. They worked as migrant farm workers in Santa Maria, California. After finishing high school, Dr. Jiménez received several scholarships and went to attend Santa Clara University, getting his BA in Spanish Studies. Later, he was awarded the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship to attend Columbia University, where he received a master's and a PhD in Latin American literature. He started his career as a professor teaching at Columbia University. He later accepted a position teaching in the Department of Modern Languages and Literature at Santa Clara University, where he worked full-time for many, many years. In 2022, he received the honorable distinction as Professor Emeritus. Dr. Francisco Jiménez is the author of La Mariposa and Breaking Through, the two stories that have been adapted to the stage by Leo Cortez, and that we are so proud to produce this year as part of our celebration for Teatro Visión's 40th anniversary in collaboration with SCU Presents. Bienvenido a Dr. Jiménez, o como nos referimos con mucho cariño, nuestro querido Francisco Panchito. Buenas noches y bienvenido.
Buenas noches. Muchas gracias por esa presentación tan bonita. Se lo agradezco.
Gracias. And we also have with us director, producer, actor, designer, and playwright, Leo Cortez. Mr. Cortez has an impressive 40-year career, just like us, celebrating 40 years of career in theater arts. Currently, he is developing new theater arts program for bilingual children in Santa Barbara County schools. He received a BFA from Webster University in St. Louis and completed his actor and technical theater training at the Pacific Conservatory Theater at Allan Hancock College. He has worked with companies such as the St. Louis Rep, St. Louis Opera, the Ali Theater in Houston, Texas, the Marriott in Chicago, Illinois, Utah Festival Opera, and Oregon Cabaret. His film and television credits include Disney cable programming, HBO NYC, Lucasfilms, and Jim Henson's productions. All of his jobs, he is proud to have worked on art. Out of all of his jobs, he is proud to have worked on our two films, Night Riders and Creep Show, both directed by his hero, the late George Romero. Acting credits include Man of La Mancha, I Am My Own Wife, A Flea in Her Ear, The Producers, and Peter and the Starcatcher. In addition, he has originated several roles in new plays written by celebrated playwright Jose Cruz Gonzalez, including The Heart's Desire, Los Patricios, and the play Invierno, based in The Winter's Tale. Among the plays, Mr. Cortez had pro- has his plays. The plays he has had produced include Oliver Button is a Sissy, Karaoke Queens of the St. James, the Circuit Trilogy, Damaged Flowers, and his new play, The Tribe. Welcome tonight, Leo.
Thank you.
Yeah. That I'm nervous and but welcome. Thank you.
Gracias for the invitation as well.
Well, as I said, I'm delighted to have you both here tonight to share with our audience a little bit about you and your careers. And let me tell you that producing these two shows is a dream come true for me. And this year, particularly, that we are celebrating 40 years of making teatro in Teatro Visión, I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate than by bringing these incredible stories to our stage, La Mariposa and Breaking Through. So, muchas gracias for allowing us to do these shows in partnerships with the SEU Presents Performing Arts Center at Santa Clara University. So now, let's talk about you. Let's start with you, Francisco. Tell us more about you. What would you like the audience to know about who you are?
That's a very good question. I would say that I am a teacher and a student by heart. I have devoted most of my professional life to teaching and trying to help students develop their God-given talents and to use those talents to make a difference in our communities. And as a student, I continue to learn when I teach, not only from my own research, but also from my students. They teach me a lot about their own experiences that enrich my own life. So that's basically who I am. I should add, of course, that I'm very proud of having a wonderful family. I've been married for 54 years, and we have, my wife and I are blessed with 3 boys who are married and 5 grandchildren.
Congratulations. What a blessing. What a blessing. And I love what you said about being a student and a teacher. I think that's something that just in life we sometimes lose perspective about the importance of this of this human activity, which is that we learn and then we teach and then we learn and then we teach, and this is reciprocal, and it's something that particularly in the philosophy of Augusto Boal, we do at Teatro Visión about the teacher student
Yes.
dynamics.
Yes.
Thank you. Leo, tell us something or tell us more about you in addition to this amazing curriculum that you have.
I think it's important to note that I was also, like Francisco, a child that grew up with migrant working parents. I was, I believe, 2 years old or 3 years old when I first was taken to the fields and was laid down in a couple of sacks that we were potato picking, made a little bed for me. I did that all the way through high school. Before I went to college, this was the last time I actually went out with my family on that one. And my education is completely based on my mentors, like Francisco, who had amazing teachers. We share a lot of those same teachers because I grew up in Santa Maria, California, as well. And that, for me, is a major part about just becoming who I am today. Is I started out like Francisco, and I have established a career in the theater only because I had the amazing help from these remarkable people in my life. So I'm very happy to be able to do that, to have that opportunity. And I seek those opportunities all the time to offer it to other people. So my vocation isn't only in the writing the plays, but in every aspect of theater. I do all areas, and when I develop new programs, that's where I'm probably at my best, is to develop programs that hadn't existed before, but they're special because they are geared to a specific type of child, a student, or a school. And for me, it just gives so much more relevance to the work that we're doing with them, and allows children to find themselves, like I was able to find my way, as Francisco was able to find his. One other thing is that I've been working on these plays with Francisco for over 20 years now, and I just pushed myself into be part of his family. So,
And you are finally.
yeah, so I've got a whole new family in Francisco and his, and I'm very proud of that, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you. Thank you. It's so interesting how the universe brings us to all these different roads and journeys where we encounter people that change our lives
Yes.
in many ways. It's wonderful and
Yes.
beautiful. So, Francisco, in addition to an outstanding career as a scholar in the area of arts and humanities, in 1997 you published your first autobiographical short novel.
Mhm.
Tell us about it, and what was the inspiration to write
Yeah.
it?
Uh-huh. Um, the inspiration for writing in the circuit was my experiences of growing up in a family of migrant workers. I wanted to document part of my own family's history, but more importantly, I wanted to chronicle the lives of many, many families who work very, very hard. And thanks to their noble work, all of us can enjoy our meals every single day. And so I get my inspiration from these families whose invaluable work in many ways have shaped who we are as a nation. And so I'm inspired by them, and personally, and also they inspire my writing. I hope that people who read my stories will get a deeper, have a deeper empathy and respect and gratitude towards migrant workers. So that's really why I write, knowing that my story is not unique. It's really the story of many families from the past and the present. And it's important to document those experiences because they are an important part of the American experience. It's who we are.
Absolutely, and something that, I mean, the stories are beautifully written, and something that I find particularly captivating is that while there is you show the challenges of migrant families and the hardships in these lives, your stories focus on that journey into self-efficacy and agency without victimizing the protagonist. What was the process for you?
For writing, you mean? Or yeah, but all my stories are autobiographical. They're based on my experiences, you know, and I focus on those memorable experiences that I went through as a child, and those experiences have informed everything I do now. In my teaching, in my writing, in my public speaking. I just feel that I have to try to create a more inclusive, just and humane society. As you know, and when I was growing up, for example, I didn't see myself reflected in any of the curriculum that I went through. And I remember when I was in, I think it was in El Camino Junior High, Leo, when I were reading about the history, and I ran across the name Hernan Cortez. And for the first time, I saw a Spanish name in a book, and I got very, very excited. But that was about it. And then you know, going through schools, I didn't see my experience at all. And so as I got older and was able to write, I thought that it was important to write that experience, knowing that it was the experience of many people, not only Latinos, but also immigrants who come to this country from various parts of the world, and not knowing a word of English. They come here and they suffer discrimination, sometimes racism. But what sustains these families is the hope and dream of having a better life for their children and their children's children. So they're courageous. And I can't. I think that the immigrants who come across the borders remind us and inspire us, remind us of who we are as a nation mostly made up of immigrants, with the exception, of course, of Native Americans who are always here, and African Americans whose ancestors were brought here forcefully and enslaved. So, and I think that when it's important for us to tell our stories, because if we don't tell our stories, someone else will and distort them, as has been the case in traditional American literature. And so I think through theater and through film and through all the arts, it's important that we make an effort to correct that negative image that has been existing in all kinds of art forms throughout the history of our country.
Thank you, Francisco. Your comment about the responsibility that we have of telling our stories, and the right that we have to tell our stories, because if we don't do it, we will in a distorted way, and we have that opportunity to do it in a more dignified and empowering way. That's right. Very powerful. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Leo, a similar question to you. You also have a very impressive career in the theater arts. So we would like to know first, how do you come across Francisco's works, and what has been your experience adapting these autobiographical stories?
I hope we have enough time for this story. But I was working at the Pacific Conservatory Theater in the Performing Arts at Ellen Hancock College. I think this goes back to 1994, around there, 95. And a friend of mine, who is also a friend of Francisco's, and I didn't know Francisco at that time, came to me with a book and says, I was leading the outreach program, which is new programming for children bilingual plays, and drops this book off on my table and says, you've got to read this. Her name was Linda, and said, this could be a great play for your program. And I thought, okay, I'll read that. So I put it on top of the pile of all the other books I was supposed to read, and left there. Always take those to my car, left them in the trunk. And that following weekend, I believe it was a storm, a really big storm. And all power was out. I had candles in the house and I had nothing to do. So I went to my car to see what I had to read. And on top was Francisco's book, The Circuit. When I pulled that one out, I went to the house and started reading by candlelight, by the way, The Circuit. And at the end of it, I think I was done in almost like an hour and a half or so. And I was in tears. I was crying openly, realizing that my story had been written down in a book. I was so connected with Francisco's story in ways that were just unimaginable. He listed streets that I lived on. He listed schools that I went to. He listed all these beautiful moments, but the one that really reached home was his life in the fields, working in the fields with his family at a young age. And I related in a way that was just so deep and emotional that I had to write this play based on that book. And I went about calling my friend Linda Maxwell and saying, I need to find this author because I want permission to turn it into a play. And she connected me like at that afternoon, actually. And I don't think I called Francisco for at least a week after that, because I was trying to form a way to bring this subject up to how do I adapt this book into a play, and will you give me permission? Because at that time I wasn't really known as a playwright. I was more known as an actor and a director. Well, I think it was our first conversation, Francisco, that we just like hit it off. Our conversations just took off from there. And we immediately found a need to do this because, like Francisco, I believe that your story, if it's not told, will never be heard. A lot of my programming is all about developing ways that children, adults, anybody with a second language, a first language being not English, to find a way to speak to the world and give them a voice that they wouldn't have otherwise. Tell them the story in a way for them that gets it heard, that people can hear it, because otherwise it will never be known, or it will be distorted. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was all about developing this play in a two-language format. Bilingual theater was very new at that time as well. Very few theaters were doing it, and I was developing a whole program. That's all we focused on. And landing at the Pacific Conservatory Theater was it was a big thing for me to be able to have that kind of opportunity, and I grabbed it. And when I did that, when I got permission from Francisco, we did not have permission immediately, because there were other things I had to deal with, the rights to the book, things like that. So we waited, I think, about 4 years, maybe 5 years, I think, when I finally got the full green light to work on this. And it was not within that. It was actually my interpretation of The Circuit. It was the other version of La Mariposa that became the story for the play. So if you read The Circuit, it goes on to 12 short stories. I think it's 12, correct, Francisco?
Yes, that's right.
And that the way that I structured it was to go from entering the country and the butterfly that emerges when things change in Francisco's life, at that time, Panchito's life. And he's a young man at the end of that. He's a child and a young man at the end of that play. And that, to me, was the genesis for launching the whole story. That butterfly meant everything, not only to me, but when I hear people talk about seeing the play, they will often say, that butterfly means so much to me, because I felt like that's what happened to me when I found my wings. And that always touches me when I do that. It becomes a metaphor for everything I've done in my life, sometimes, that butterfly. And when I finally got the show up, and Francisco I was really worried that he wouldn't like it. And I stayed really close to telling a story about his family. That was my main focus, is never fray from that family. They've got to know who this family was, what they did, and how they got through this. And by that time, he had already worked his way into breaking through. And I remember at the end of that play, the first one, La Mariposa, he says, "I've written another book, and I was wondering if you would like to turn that one into a play as well." And I was like, "Wow, yes, of course, yes." And I got so excited. I think I couldn't even find words to express how excited I was. I was trying to be really cool about it. Like, oh yeah, okay, I think that will work out, Francisco. Yeah, it was great. The moment itself, and then from that point on, I was just joined his family, and I don't think we've stopped working together on these since
Yeah.
then. It's been going on for years now. But
And working with you has been one of my most enriching experiences, Leo.
thank you.
And I can't tell you how appreciative I am, because you in your play you give you're very respectful to my family and the characters, and you really capture the spirit that I hoped you would capture, and you did. And so I thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
This
Overall,
is such a beautiful story that I'm like, I'm very, very, very touched, particularly because what Francisco had just mentioned of being in this world where he couldn't see himself in the stories or in the books, and forward a few years, there is this man who opens a book and see himself in that book, not only just the name but the story itself. How powerful is that? um I don't know that, Francisco, that you are aware of the huge impact that your work has had in people's lives. I'm not from here. I migrated from Mexico, and I came here as an adult. But when I directed Breaking Through, it was difficult for me to go through that story because it brought so many emotions. Even though I didn't come as a farm worker, uh, I lived here undocumented for many years. So there were a lot of intersections where I found myself connected. But the overall, the human experience, that's what touched me so deeply. And again, right now, hearing your story, Leon, on how this happened, it's like full circle. It's just beautiful, beautiful. Thank you to you both for sharing. I want to mention that we have a
Thank you.
comment from, it doesn't have a name, but it's from well, let's have Jacqueline Mora. Jacob. Jacqueline says, la conexión de lucha y de ganas con esperanza y pasión. Teniendo unos líderes como ustedes ayudan a cambiar nuestras vidas. Esa semilla de perseverancia que sí se puede. Admirándolos mucho con agradecimiento. It's wonderful to have
Yeah.
amazing people like you folks here in the room. Thank you for being with us tonight. And we also have a comment. We only have the well, it doesn't have a name, the handle, the Instagram handle, and it says, "Hola Panchito, you are such an inspiration." So M Padilla 15, that's the Instagram handle. Thank you very much for your comment, and thank you to all the people that are watching and are joining us tonight here in La Hora del Mitote. We have Dr. Francisco Jiménez, author of La Mariposa and Breaking Through, and Leo Cortez, playwright, who created these beautiful adaptations of these stories that Teatro Visión is producing and performing from April 11th to the 14th. This is in the context of our 40th anniversary. Thank you for being here tonight, and we invite you to send us your comments and questions. If you have more information about the plays, you can visit our website at teatrovision.org /breaking through. Now let's switch a little bit. Still in the in this, the theme of the plays. So this is for Francisco. according to the Pew Research Center, as of 2021, there were about 10.5 million, and they call it unauthorized immigrants, folks who do not have documents. And they
Mhm.
represent 3% of the total US population and 22% of the foreign born population. We know that the issue of immigration is complex, and it's one that has polarized our society tremendously between
Yes.
those who propose strict immigration laws to stop immigration from happening and those who seek a pathway to citizenship
Mhm.
for those who are living here without documents. What relevance do these stories have in today's society, Francisco?
Well, I think that what's happening in our country and the attitudes towards immigrants hurts my heart, because when if people, if our nation look back and at their own ancestry, they will discover that their ancestors were also immigrants. And the reason they came here was the same reason immigrants are trying to come here, looking for a better life for their children and their children's children. So immigrants, in a sense, nourish the spirit of, when we call it the spirit of America, the soul of America. They nourish that soul, and they're part of their soul, of that soul. So I think that the story is universal in that sense, because it does deal with immigration. It deals with people who risk their lives, in many cases lose their lives, trying to come here, and the reason for that is because they want a better life for their children. So my hope is that over time that people will better understand their own ancestry, and so they can make connections to the current immigrant situation. Because when they learn about the stories of their own stories, and our stories, it's a collective stories, there are connections. And when we see those connections, then we begin to break down those walls that separate us from one another, and we can take comfort, and we can rejoice in the fact that all of us are members of the same family, the human family. And so when any one of us suffers, we all suffer. I think that I can't thank you, Rodrigo, and Teatro Visión, and Leo for doing the work that you do, to sensitize, to bring to the public our stories that are their stories as well. And they're important. They're an integral and important part of the American story. So that's, I think that's what I think that the stories that I depict in my book are really everyone's story.
And thank you, Francisco. And I wanted to bring these numbers for context, but also because when we talk about immigration, in the media, it's usually tied to numbers.
Yes.
And very few times we talked about individual stories. That these numbers represent human beings,
That's correct.
represent
That's right.
lives, represent dreams. And
Yeah,
we don't talk about it often.
that's right.
And so it is easy to say there are 10 million immigrants and they are put in a box. But when we hear the stories, that's a different story.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the importance, right?
yes, yes. And I think your plays, theater, and film do a great service to destroy those images that are negative, and portray the human element of our society, the humanness of immigrants, that they also have the same rights, the same emotions, and that others have. And so I think it's important to put a face on those, so that people can see a human face rather than a number. You're absolutely right, Rodrigo.
That's correct. Thank you, Francisco. And as segue to that, Leo, what can theater artists do to contribute to raising awareness and bringing people closer to understanding social issues such as immigration?
It's such a lovely question and such a complex question at the same time. What Francisco did was tell his story. That's all he did. He told his story. And of course, he did it eloquently and beautifully. And it's in the form of 3-4 books, shortened versions, longer versions. Now there's an illustrated novel. And it's, to me, that is reaching more people. There might be a person who doesn't read a book, a novel out of the library, but they will pick up an illustrated novel, also known as comic books in a sense. But that word is getting out there. When theater comes around, or when plays turn into movies, and that is where you launch a whole new audience to introduce them to this work, to this story. And Francisco did all the hard work. He's the one who told his story, which is telling the lives of so many other people like myself. When I read that book, I was reading my story. Mm-hmm. And that reached me because I read a book. If I didn't read books, I would have to wait years later for the illustrated novel to come out, because I also love comic books. But that point is that it's going to be so much more electric and passing through this country much faster, and internationally much faster, when it goes out in different mediums. And I'm theater. I've worked in film, television, but theater is probably the most impacting, the most powerful form of storytelling that I've ever worked on. And it does give an emotional impact to whoever's watching. And when they realize that what they're watching is a real story about real people, that's when they connect and it becomes a part of them. That story now is their story. And I'm inspired by that because Francisco gave me a voice when he wrote his book. I can't imagine how many out there are doing the same thing when they read it, realizing that's my story. So for me, I think theater arts and film, any actor who takes this charge on to perform these roles is to be honorable to the people who they were, the people in the story. Honor those stories, honor those people, because they're telling your story. They're telling that story for everybody else who can't speak or offer their story in a book. And to me, that is the most powerful way of telling the world that this is a part of American history, Mexican history, and even they immigrated. There's a lot of people that immigrated to Mexico. And you have to think about how many lines of ancestry are there in the history of the world that some of them never had their story told. I'm going to get very emotional because of this. That hurts the most. Yes. Knowing that there are people who have lived lives here and did remarkable things, and no one ever told their story. And sometimes it'll come up in a family gathering and say, oh, don't you remember your tia Trucha? She was the one who did this and that, and she's the one who made those amazing tamales. And the story would be gone forever if we didn't talk about them.
and those. Thank you, Leo. Those are the rewards that I see when I give talks, and people begin to tell their stories, and they say, "Yes, I can relate to that. This is my story," and they begin to share their stories, the stories that people who were close to each other hadn't heard before. So it opens up that people to feel free to tell their own stories. I think that's one of the biggest rewards that I can imagine happening through the arts, through the humanities. Yeah.
And Rodrigo, the fact that you're doing these plays with young actors, bilingual actors, that just sent me through the roof. I loved the idea. I said, of course, yes, please do this. It was years ago, I think it was like 2005, that we took La Mariposa to Scotland, to the Fringe Festival. And it was a lot of students from the San Ynez Valley in the Santa Barbara County. None of them, some of them had never been to play before. But we had a leader that just was bold and said, we're going to make this happen. And I was sitting in a theater in Scotland, in Edinburgh, Scotland, watching my play being done by 14 high school students from Santa Ynez in Santa Barbara County.
And there was a diverse, the diversity in that group was beautiful.
Yeah, it was just one of the most magical things that has ever happened to me in my life. Francisco joined us with Laura, his wife, and it was so fun. I was like, here's a little kid who grew up in the fields with my family, and I'm in Scotland seeing my play being done by this amazing writer and all these this director and these students, and I just went, it's a moment in my life I will never forget. I've written it down. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet, but has to be something done with that, because that part of my story is there because of Francisco's story.
Yeah.
There is a domino effect that goes that way, and you're offering these young children an opportunity to perform as actors, to be professional actors in their own right, and telling a story that not just resonates with them, but with everybody else that has followed that line. And I couldn't be prouder to include myself in this journey that you've taken on, Rodrigo. I think it's amazing.
That's right, and it's so rewarding to see students in the audience, children in the audience, after seeing your plays, feel so proud to see themselves reflected in the stage, and they say you can see in their eyes and their body movements that they feel valued. They get more self-confidence, and so they begin to appreciate even more their own families. And so I always in my talks I always ask the audience to record their own stories and share them, because it's so important to do that. Because it's those stories that family stories that make us who we are as individuals. Yeah. So I can't thank you enough, Rodrigo, and Teatro Visión for putting up, for producing these Leo stories or plays. It touches my heart deeply.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's mutual, right? Without your story, Leo would have not had the opportunity to do such a beautiful job adapting it, and we wouldn't have a beautiful play to produce. So it goes full circle, and I'm very, very, very thankful too.
Yeah.
And I want to share a couple of things. One is that recently a former youth who attended the performance at Santa Clara University or Breaking Through came to me and said, you don't know who I am, but I was sitting in that performance and I was crying.
Oh, wow.
And now it's it's a young adult. I mean, this was what, 4 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And and was so excited that we were doing the play again because she loved it so much. And she
Oh,
said, "Oh my God, I was chillando todo el tiempo." So,
wow.
so it was so beautiful. And
Yeah.
I also wanted to share that the directors of the play, Hugo Badu and Ricardo Cortez, they both are immigrants
Ah,
and theater makers. And we asked them and I approached them to direct the play. They read it. The first thing they said is like, "Oh my God, terminé chillando." I was crying at the end of the because the stories are so beautiful. And Leo, I think you did a wonderful job in adapting it and staying true to the characters.
yes.
And when they started working with the youth, they asked them to share what how they identified with it, and some say it on a personal level, but some say it sounds like the story of my
Yeah.
papa, mama, there. And it was so
Yeah.
interesting. So
Yes. Yeah.
again, thank you again for the work that you both have done.
Yeah.
And right now we're approaching it. We're in the last quarter of our session here tonight. We are in La Hora del Mitote. Thank you everyone who joining us tonight. We are here in a conversation, a lovely conversation with author Francisco Jiménez and playwright Leo Cortez. We're talking about the work that they've done with La Mariposa and Breaking Through. Both shows will be performed at Mexican Heritage Plaza Theater on April 11th to the 14th. We will have performance on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. and on Saturday and Sunday at 2 p.m. So Saturday we have two shows, a matinee and an evening performance. And you can find more information about the shows and how to get your tickets at teatrovision.org. And hurry up because everybody wants to see these stories on stage, and we are very, very proud to produce them. Before we go into the last segment, I do want to mention we have a couple of comments from a couple of wonderful people who are joining us tonight. Stephanie Ceja, it also makes multi-generational connections having these pieces of art translated to theater. Families can come together and experience the beautifully written words through the artist's bodies. No matter if you can read, you will get the feel. Absolutely. Thank you, Stephanie, for your beautiful comment. And
Yes.
we have one comment from Laura Diaz. Laura says, "I'm so excited to see Professor Jimenez's books on stage. Proud to say he was my advisor at Santa Clara University back in early 2000s, and now come full circle with my daughter being part of this wonderful production."
Oh, wow.
Beautiful.
Wow.
How amazing! So you'll get to see a
Wow.
beautiful
So excited. So excited.
Julia performing
Yes.
in this play. Thank you, thank you. Anything that you want to add before we go into the last questions? Anything that any reactions?
Francisco, I share your
Well,
thoughts.
I'm just so grateful to both of you, to Leo for doing the plays, and to you, Rodrigo, for directing Breaking Through at Santa Clara University a couple of years ago. It was a beautiful production, and also to I'm grateful to you for making the plays in both languages, in English and Spanish, because it's so important that students who know Spanish that they continue to develop the language and know that it's language that transmits culture. And if we lose the language, we lose our culture. And so it's so important to maintain that to be bilingual, to see being able to speak another language as an asset, as an advantage. And so I appreciate your doing the plays in both languages. It's a powerful message for all of us, for our society. So thank you so much. And I'm sure Leo and I appreciate your Teatro Visión's performing these plays. It really is an honor for me, and I'm sure it's an honor for my dear friend Leo. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Francisco. Leo, you were going to say something.
One of the things that I love the comments that came in, the viewers that offered. That again is, I often have a thought, but I don't always ask a question when I'm watching these kind of podcasts or these kind of screen appearances. And I sometimes wish I had done it. The people who do it and get them read are always amazing to me because it takes me back to a much more simpler format. It's like when I'm in a market and all of a sudden se me antoja un enchilada, but I don't know how to make the enchilada sauce. I don't want it out of a can. So I look around and I find la señorita que está at the counter, or I see la señora that's behind, you're looking at the chilies. And I will go to her or either one of them and say, Doña, ¿me puede explicar cómo se hace la salsa para enchiladas? And she will give me a whole recipe that's been in her family line forever. I've done this many times. That's how I learned how to do mole in a different way. And that's how I learned to make the salsas. And we have such connections in that moment. We'll never see each other again. But that moment of just being in a mercado and getting a recipe and sharing that's familia. That's how you spread your story. And it's a moment where we both walk away very proud of our lineage, of our people. La raza is, and it's everywhere. And I love moments like that.
I
want to just share that for those who asked or who commented on this. I applaud them because it takes a lot of courage to ask a question in front of a lot of people you don't know and to state it in a way that's just so poetic. I love that. And thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, oral histories is so part of our and storytelling. It's so part of our culture. I mean, I'm sure any of us can share an anecdote of our tias or abuelas telling us something through the story of like, cuando tu tía ta hacía esto, and sometimes they go through the whole árbol genealógico to tell you a single thing, and that's how I know about people that I never met. It's just so wonderful, so wonderful. I wanted to say that now that you mentioned about the two languages, that it really is a dream come true for me to be able to produce these two shows, particularly because I was very interested in bringing two shows, because I feel like that they complement each other and they show two different experiences of Panchito when he didn't know a word of English, he didn't understand what people were saying, and the analogy of the butterfly, and then moving into his high school years and now being part of the group and having this connection with his friends, and using the same slang that they were using, etc. I think it's so beautiful, and it was really on purpose that I want to do La Mariposa in Spanish and breaking through in English. And when now that I'm going to the rehearsals, particularly towards the end, when there is this conversation with Miss Scalpino and Mr. Sims, and Frankie is like, ¿Qué dicen? And there's this moment with Curtis when he admires the butterfly that he drew. And Panchito says, ¿Cómo se dice es tuyo? It's just so Oh my God, I get emotional. As you can see, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. But that stems from the story itself. So, and I want to let the audience know that while we are doing uh, La Mariposa in Spanish and Breaking Through in English, we will be providing simultaneous
Yes.
subtitles in
Yeah.
both languages.
Yes.
So as you see La Mariposa in Spanish, you will see subtitles in both languages, Spanish and English, and the same thing for Breaking Through. And in addition, on the Saturday performance, we will be providing ASL interpretation. So we want more and more people to be able to see these wonderful pieces. And we're fastly approaching to the end, but we have one comment from Leticia. A heartfelt thank you for the invitation to join in on the conversation this evening with the author of his acclaimed memoir, Dr. Francisco Jiménez, joined by Leo Cortez, who adapted one of his novels into a theater play for Teatro Visión. I am honored to partake this evening. I have two questions. The first is for Dr. Jiménez. I am in the process of writing my autobiography.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for me as a novice writer? And the second question is for Mr. Cortez. Will your play, oh, we didn't get the full comment. Will your
The
playwright be, well, we will go to your question. Maybe Jacob can send it to us. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Jacob. So the first question.
yes.
So, what advice do you have for a novice writer, Francisco?
Yes, I have never taken a course in writing, but the best advice that I ever received was from my editor, who said, "Write from the heart." In other words, write, express yourself, who you are through your writing. Write down your emotions, your reactions to whatever you're writing. Write from the heart, and continue writing, because writing is a skill, and the more you write, the better you become as a writer. So um, it's not hard. It's doable, and I appreciate your asking that question. Um, so that would be my advice. And I also wanted to comment about the translation, Rodrigo. I want to thank you for translating La Mariposa into beautiful Spanish. I mean, it was a work of art. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the question for Leo is, will your play be live streamed?
Live streamed. I think that my first, of course, answer is in time we will see. There's a more important element right now about the difference between theater and film, even streaming, is that the story has to live in its incarnation first as a play, but first as the novel that it's based on. And a screenwriter will do a very different interpretation of what the book is for a much larger mass media that more people see. So a lot of care has to go into that. And I think from the very beginning, Francisco and I knew that the filming of this story would have to be a very different approach. And so that's always been his decision, his choice. I've always stayed true to the theater part of the theatrical version of this as a play, but as a screen adaptation, that would be his way to look at that work from by somebody else and see how that interprets, which that first step has been taken.
Mhm.
And it's amazing that it's gotten that far. So, but
I just want to say that the short film, 22-minute long film, dramatic film, has been produced with a title Under the Unbroken Sky. And you can see the trailer on YouTube if you type in The Unbroken Sky, and it gives you an idea of what that 22-minute film is like. It's a beautiful piece based on my writing. And it's being shown in various film festivals. It's going to be, it's been done in Gilroy and Watsonville, San Francisco, and the next one will be in San Juan Bautista, and then in LA. So it's also being filmed, at least partly filmed. So that's another wonderful piece of art that transmits our stories, our story as we've been discussing. So I feel very, very grateful for that happening.
Also, the idea of like how you adapt that. If you watch the 22-minute one, The Unbroken Sky is really powerful. It's deep and powerful, and what makes it so is less words. It's the filming. It's the actors' responses of just thought and process, and it's beautiful. Which is why sometimes when you look at, do we stream these? I think a film version would be lovely to stream. I think a stage version is lovely to see live.
Yeah.
That's teatro.
That's
Teatro
right.
is an art that should be seen live, and a film to be seen in a dark room with a lot of strangers eating popcorn. It's a very different experience because the emotional impact is going to be there as well.
Thank you. I'm definitely looking forward to watching The Unbroken Sky as soon as I'm able to catch a showing. And folks, stay tuned and follow the website, theunbrokensky.com, to see where it will be performing. And recently performed at Watsonville Festival to sold out audiences. So thank you. So we are now at time, but before we go, and I say my closing remarks, I want to bring the last few comments that we had. We have one from, and more. We have one from Corina. Corina, thank you so much for being here. She says, I love that. We don't need permission to be who we are. Thank you, Francisco, for being a beautiful example of that. And Citlali, her daughter, will be also in the show. Thank you, Corina, for your comment. Leticia, she is saying, sí, de corazón estoy de acuerdo. Gracias por su amable consejo, doctor Jiménez. María Teresa Bárcenas, saludos y estaré encantada de ver estas obras del doctor Jiménez puestas en el teatro y dirigidas por Hugo Badú y Ricardo Cortés. Tenemos un comentario de uno de los directores, Hugo Badú. Gracias, maestro Panchito, por compartir tus historias, y maestro Leo por tan bella adaptación. Es un honor traer al escenario estas bellas historias con la magia de la nueva generación de jóvenes teatristas. Bendiciones. Y Corina says, thank you. And I also want to thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being so kind and being here with us tonight. As I told you at the beginning, there is a lot more that we can talk about, and I hope we have another opportunity to share experiences and tell stories. There were questions that se quedaron en el tintero, but I'm very, very grateful for your presence here tonight. I'm so looking forward for you to see the show. And Leo, I know that you're probably super busy, but I hope at least in pictures in photos that you're able to see the show. You were going to say something?
Time to do that, make sure.
Okay. And I want to close and thank everyone who has liked our pages and our event tonight. Keep sending us your love, and stay tuned for all the events that we're organizing in the 40th anniversary, including our big gala on August 24th at the theater, the Mexican Heritage Plaza. And you can go on our website, teatrovision.org to see the list of all the events that are taking part in this 40th anniversary. And please don't forget to buy your tickets like right now to come and see La Mariposa and breaking through on the beautiful Teatro de la Plaza de la Herencia Mexicana. We will be there from April 14th, April 11th to the 14th at the Mexican Heritage Plaza Theater. Muchísimas gracias, Leo Cortez, por estar aquí esta noche. Thank you for being here. Y Francisco, con todo mi corazón y agradecimiento, mil gracias por estarnos aquí y honrarnos con tu presencia.
Es mi placer. Gracias, Rodrigo. Muchas gracias.
Nos vemos hasta la próxima, amigos.
Yeah.